they're on now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Walsh. I'm going to be the chairman of today's meeting. I'd like to introduce my fellow commissioners and everybody around the table and audience, if you would, please, and then we will commence.
Douglas Kellner.
Evelyn Aquila.
Gregory Peterson.
Todd Valentine. Paul Collins. Tom Connolly.
John Conklin.
Dave Loomis.
Joe Burns.
Bill McCann.
Liz Hogan.
Bob Bradden.
John Alex, Dave Sennett.
John Leto, ESMS.
Terry Green, election operations.
Bob Byrne, election operations.
Thank you all very much. Our first order of business will be the meeting of the Board of Canvassers. I'd like to call upon Kim for, where is Kim?
It's not.
Anna is ill.
This isn't working, you guys make it work.
Anything you want to say while we're waiting for Kim?
This, yes, this amendment to the certification is a result
Here
of
it is.
the votes that need to be canvassed with regards to the court action that was raised in 2010. These were ballots that were otherwise should have been canvassed, but through some issue at the county board, they were not. So pursuant to the court order, the boards canvassed the ballots, and the results have come in. And it was a very small number of ballots, so there was no change in the overall result at any rate. But so that the votes are accurately recorded, which was part of the court order, we need to amend the canvass of the votes.
Oh. I'm sorry.
This doesn't require a vote, just requires signatures.
One more to go, two more to go.
I move that we accept the restatement of canvas as prepared by the staff, and that we're signing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried.
Yeah. I can't read my typing enough. Right hand.
That's, I think.
I'm saying it right hand. Guess I have to still keep going.
Here, I'll let you get a head start.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I feel like I'm scribbling. I think there's another way.
That's all five.
We'll check it, Mike, to make sure.
My hand, I always prided myself on my good handwriting. If I just scribble. Congratulations to all of them we just signed.
Kim, you want to just briefly explain why we did the recertification?
Sure.
Or the,
Back in 2010, the United States Department of Justice sued us for non-compliance with the mailing deadlines for the UOCAVA ballots. It's been an ongoing process of negotiation and surveying the counties, which we thank them for their cooperation. The judge's order earlier this year, I believe it was February 14th of this year, required that the state board continue to work with the counties to ensure that the 2010 ballots were accurately reflected in the county certifications. The end result was the changes that you just recertified. And which basically ends that particular,
There were 7 ballots
Seven
that were
ballots.
determined that should have been counted, that,
9.
9, okay?
7 from one county, 2 from another. There were 7
So many
ballots
have lost it now.
in total statewide.
So we've changed the totals for the final result of the 2010 elections by 9 votes.
Right, which would just leave me again to,
Out of 4 million.
yeah, to warn not warn the counties, but impress upon the counties that, we do have another mailing deadline coming up for the general election.
1 second.
Yeah, on the 22nd of this month. And in order to avoid further exercises such as the one we just completed that, are very labor intensive and time consuming, we would just urge, the counties that once again to make sure they meet that deadline.
Yes.
Thank you all. We've had the motion made, seconded, voted on, and approved. That will conclude the meeting of the Board of Canvassers. We will now proceed into the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners. The first item of business is the minutes of the August 7th meeting. Do you have a motion?
I move that we adopt the minutes as drafted.
Second.
Second.
Favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 2, executive updates. Bob Brem, Todd Valentine.
Well, yeah, the primary is tomorrow, so we continue with our preparations for that. Obviously, the results with regards to the independent petition filing period are, the challenges are before you. And we are following up with the counties as far as their preparation to mail out as required under our court order, surveying them to make sure that they tell us if there are any issues with regards to mailing out the military ballots next week. Those surveys are due back Friday, and then we're ready to follow up with them on either Friday or Monday if we haven't heard from them. On the administrative side, we are looking to move out of our rented storage space at the end of this month. Actually, movers coming next week for a number of this stuff, and then archive is to pick up some of the materials that were scheduled to be archived over the summer, and now it's time to do that. So that would consolidate all our operations into one building. Weird, I don't think we've ever had that, so. And the upside of that is that will give us a grand total where we spend approximately $6,000 a month on rent on the rented space, so that's another savings to the state, so that's a big improvement there.
Right.
So, but that also has forced, the storage space in our basement is not quite as large as the storage space we have now, but we have accumulated over the years a lot of garbage or just stuff you didn't throw out because you had the space, so it's forcing the units to go through and purge things that you would otherwise leave. I know we have an old lever voting machine down at the warehouse, several other voting systems that the vendors won't come and pick them up. Well, we just haven't gotten rid of them because the ones that never went through a certification are just sitting there. Boxes of other stuff, so surprisingly nothing really fun or exciting. I found some nice cool rubber stamps that I don't know what to do with, but from days gone by when you use rubber stamps and on it.
eBay, Todd?
Todd, is there a time
Maybe.
limit?
Somebody may want to leave your voting machine.
Is there a time limit for
We have
many of
reached out
them?
to the state museum with regard to the lever voting machine.
Oh,
We
okay.
understand the historical nature of that, but
Nassau County still has theirs.
yeah, NASA has a whole warehouse full of them.
So does New York City, at a cost of
Sure, absolutely.
$750,000 a year.
You know, and I know that the Smithsonian has them already, so it's not like a lot of museums are really
Really
shiny
want
to
them,
get
yeah.
one old ABM lever machine.
It's not that old.
What I wanted to ask you, Todd, if any of this stuff that we have down there, do we have a time limit on it? You know what I mean?
We do, we did,
Okay, good.
that's a good point.
I remember it wasn't
Related to
one
that,
time.
we do have record retention schedules, we
Okay,
have,
good.
we were, that, again, it's a good exercise to go back and see what our record retention schedules are through the state archives.
Because for a long time
Different
we
things
didn't,
have
yeah,
variety
we
of
didn't.
things, so, some of them are quite long. For example, campaign finance records are permanent, So when they
Yeah.
leave our possession, we hold on to them for quite a long time, because we often go back and refer to them.
Right.
And it's easier to refer them if we have them in our possession. We then send them to archive, so they're gonna have to schedule a pickup of that. Petitions, that get on the ballot, those are only saved for, it's a 2-year period, or for the next cycle if it
Yeah.
happens to be a much longer off. But generally it's 2 years, so we destroy those at the end of the calendar year from 2 years afterwards, so we mark all those with the destruction date. Court cases, unfortunately, we're stuck with saving for a minimum of 10 years, or as long as the case is still alive, so that can mount up. You know, you're stuck with those for quite a while for petition cases, but that's the record retention schedule, so, you know, and we're planning those out, but yeah, we have revisited those, and, you know, and we can revise those if we need to, but I don't know if there's anything we have to really revisit at this time.
I think one of the other items, the State Attorney General's office has a Civil Rights Bureau. They have sent a letter out to 10 of the counties asking how those counties are planning on complying with the voting rights portion of providing instruction materials and ballots in
Languages.
all the languages. Mostly these are Spanish language counties. So we've heard from some of those counties. We did hear from the Attorney General's office. What we did was make a list of all the items that we have already translated and provided to the counties that are Voting Rights Act counties that already had copies of everything in Spanish, just to help them not have to recreate the wheel. You know, they're already done. Here's the material we already have.
But we have many different languages, especially in the city, that, I think Chinese, you know, several different dialects and, you know.
Well, we've translated them in all the other languages, but in this instance it was Spanish language. So we made sure that the counties had that information so that they can help roll it out as early as possible for these elections, and that's been helpful. One other item, I know Todd touched on it, and Kim, and probably will until it's completed, but we sent 3 reminders out to the county, one a guide, and then, you know, there've been several phone calls and requests for clarification on the Judge Sharp's requirement that we timely send a ballot with federal offices by not later than September 22nd. The state portion of the ballot will not be completed until our deadline, which is October 1st. A number of issues go into that. You know, the primaries have to be completed, the judicial conventions have to be held, any local, you know, propositions, there's a deadline that needs to be filed. So those military voters would see a second ballot for the state and local by that October 32 days before the election deadline. So we updated the information sheet that will go to the CITO website with the instructions for military voters that download a ballot. Why, when they, you know, one, that they should look for a second ballot, 2, why are they getting a second ballot, and how to send them both back so that they're timely and can be counted. So we did that work for the CITO side, came up with, you know, 2 different envelopes so that the board would understand it's not a duplicate. They're supposed to have 2. This is the one that has the federal ballot. This is the one that has the state level offices. So we provided that instruction from the co-executive directors. Everybody helped to work on it to all the counties. And then we've had several iterations of why can't I do it some other way. So we've been consistent. No, they can't do it another way. This is the way to do it. This was part of Judge Sharp's order. It's the guidance that we've given to them, one, to help make sure that it's done, that the military voters have all the choices and can accurately get them back to us. So until it's done, you know, we're all doing the reports to make sure that we comply with Justice's reporting, that it's done, and how many are there.
So we reported and sent a copy of that to Judge Sharp.
We've been continually reporting to Judge Sharp.
Yeah, I think he needs to be, you know.
He's requiring it.
Oh, yes, okay, good.
So, thank you very much.
Good, I mean, you work so hard, you people work so hard, I'm very proud of you all.
Legal, Kim Galvin, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. The unit has worked with the operations unit to review the documents and finalize them and prepare the reports that we're going to get to later in this meeting. As I said before, earlier, we've had continuing and constant conversations with the Department of Justice, both in finalizing the 2010 ballots that we just resolved, and also the continued monitoring of compliance as we seem to have quite a few elections this year requiring all the reporting requirements, and we thank the counties again for filling those out. And Tom's done a great job with that. We have, obviously monitored the regular caseload that we have before us, that Paul argued in the appellate division on the Nassau County voting machine case that was held September 5th, and we're awaiting a decision on that. We have, specifically Paul has made several pre-clearance requests that have to do with the various cases and signages and voting screens that the voters may see in the upcoming elections. And in addition, we have spent a great deal of time most recently on discussing and negotiating and conversing with the plaintiffs on both the overvote and the double vote litigation cases. If you recall, for those listening, we entered into consent decrees in September of 2010 and I think it was February or thereabouts of 2011, requiring certain screens to be in place for the
11 and 12.
11 and 12 for the 2012 general election. That, I believe, are contained in the certification software upgrade that we're going to discuss, so I don't know if we can discuss those conversations more fully when we get to that particular item on the agenda. But they've spent a great deal of time and energy building wide to talk to plants in those cases. It's taken a lot of time. And other than that, we answer the many calls that you have leading up to a primary in the state, which is soon, tomorrow. And I lost track there for a minute. And that's about it.
It's been quite a bit.
Yeah.
It sounds so easy when you're just talking about it, but
Now,
it's a
have
lot
we
of hard
already
work.
discussed Judge Prudenti's letter? Is that,
Internally
did
or
that come up
externally?
at the last meeting? I don't think so yet.
No, we didn't, not at
So,
all.
so maybe you or Paul could just talk about
Well, I can take a shot at it. I wasn't
sure.
at the meeting, but I believe that Paul and you, Commissioner Kellner, attended a meeting with Judge Prudenti in which a directive was given statewide to the courts on ex parte impoundment orders and the requirement to give notice to the board and the relevant parties. And so while I am not anticipating an impoundment order coming today or tomorrow, certainly we've advised all that we talked to that we need to be notified if there is one. I don't know if that, I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know anything.
No, well, she wrote an excellent one-page memo to all of the elected and acting justices of the Supreme Court throughout the state, reminding them that the court rules require that there be notice before there is a temporary restraining order, so that when people apply for orders on election day that would affect the administration of the election, that they have to do that on notice. So the county board should, alert their county attorneys that that is the requirement now. And I appreciate what's evolved as the state board policy, which is that that we have taken a more active position now when we get these orders, if the orders actually change the statutory scheme. And
It is difficult because, as you know, a lot of them historically have come already executed, so kind of leaves us in a bind, but I know that we put forth position on a variety of things that we've reached consensus on.
We are being involved more and more. I can tell you, the time I first came on this board, it was, we'd sit here for 20 minutes and get over the work, and it was nothing to it. Anybody could follow it. But we are being involved more and more by the courts, by the state, in the elections in this state. And I think it is to make elections safer and sounder, and, you know, sometimes they can get us crazy, but it's an awful lot of work, and I congratulate this staff for taking on all of that, because it's not easy. And I don't think Judge Parenti's order is I think it's pretty sound in a way. I'm
very grateful that she sent it out.
I am. I really think that what she did was very good, you know. And of course, she's a woman judge, let's note that.
From Brooklyn.
As the only woman on this board, let me just say, thank you, Judge Parenti. Voice of reason is heard.
Any further questions of Kim? All right, thanks, Kim. Election operations, Joe Burns.
You have our written report. A few items beyond that. We had 24 total independent nominating petitions filed this year. The asset management project, which I'm sure everybody's heard about for many years now, is moving forward. Anna and I did our final executive scores on Monday and sent that over to OGS immediately afterwards. We are the ball's now in their court. Tomorrow, of course, we have the primary election. Our staff will be here early, and we'll be going home late, fielding calls from the counties. Hopefully it will go well, but the staff will be here really the whole day. As we're wrapping up the testing with the upgrades, we'll be turning our focus now to the central count testing. Finally, on usability, we've been receiving ballots from the county boards of elections. Unfortunately, I can't say we have 100% of the counties that have gotten us their primary ballots, but Phil Jorzak and I will be working together before the general election to make sure we get every county's ballot in a timely manner. And actually, this might be the most important thing I mentioned. It wasn't mentioned last month, but we've had one of our staff members leave us, Frank Bongiorno, who is a terrific member of the election operations staff, and more importantly, a terrific human being. But unfortunately, he had some health issues that he had to take care of. So we're very sorry to have seen him go. If there is a silver lining, we've been able to bring on Charles Smith to the staff in Frank's place. Charles, we originally met, I think about 3-4 years ago when he was a Kelly temp working with the staff, and he's continued on I guess really since then. And he's a terrific person, really understands the issues that we're dealing with, and we're very happy to have him on board. And he's doing he was doing a fabulous job as a temp, and he's doing a fabulous job as part of the staff now. So he's heard us welcome him before, but I'm sure he's watching. So welcome again, Charles.
Joe, could you report on what you're doing with on ballot usability issues with respect to the general election ballots?
We, like with the primary, we're anticipating in the next couple weeks receiving ballots from the counties and taking any calls or questions or inquiries as to advice on how to get the font bigger. Phil and I will be discussing how we can get them in a more timely manner so that we're not scrambling at the very end to get a hold of them. But that's really it in a nutshell.
And would you briefly summarize what we're doing with respect to the testing and post-election audit grant and the project with Clear Ballot?
Bob, do you want to say?
Well, we're continuing to work with Clear Ballot. They made substantial progress in recognizing our ballot layouts. We had 2 of the staff go to Boston 2 weeks ago to see a demo of it. We brought a test deck with us. They were able to read it in, produce the results, and it's really turning into what looks like will be a nice tool to do an independent verification of the voting system, because all it takes from the vendor is the PDF. They register the PDF in their system, and then they scan in the ballots. It generates images from the actual ballots, and it produces results of those ballots. It gives you a visual of the votes, and it gives you totals of the votes, and you can compare that to your tapes and your reports that come out of your voting system or your EMS system.
And if that system actually works, it will be more accurate than the hand count audit that we do now, because it's much less likely that people would fudge the results based on the ambiguous marks on the ballot.
Well, certainly, it gives you a dashboard of a view of all your votes as to how much are filled in and how much aren't filled in.
So I appreciate continuing updates on the progress on that, and remind everybody that we do need, if we decide in the final report that the system works, that it will require a small legislative change to the audit provision in the statute to permit this kind of system to be used in place of the hand count.
I don't know if any of you are concerned, but I'm very concerned about Election Day in November, because of, I just see a lot of people coming out to vote, thank God, and I think we're going to have long lines, and I think some of the ballots, especially the one that I don't like, filling in those little holes, it's going to take time. So I just hope that Election Day moves smoothly, but I have concerns about it, and I'd like to state it now, so if there's anybody who has ideas on how we could avoid that, but I'm afraid it's going to be very long lines and people not being too happy. People who've never used this system before, maybe haven't voted last year. So I'm holding my breath on that. I go and visit the polls. I'm not so sure I want to go do it on this Election Day, but of course I will. And I think we should look into that with the counties, make sure that they've got everything on the mark, because it's going to be a big turnout. I really think, I could be wrong, unless of course we get teeming rain or something. I expect a big turnout and long lines, and that long lines sometimes can breed a lot of, I've seen people punch people in the nose waiting on a long line just because they thought they squeezed ahead of them. Said, no, that was my wife, she was holding the spot for me thing. So I'm just saying, let's be on our guard about Election Day.
Well put. Public Information Officer, John Conklin.
Thank you, Commissioner. You have our written report. I don't really have much to add except one item. Nassau County did finish their little one lingering issue in terms of updating their voter registration files from the redistricting this year. They're finished. It didn't affect their ability to do poll books or anything like that. So, but it was a small issue that was still hanging out there, and it has been resolved. So they have completed it. I don't really have much else to add unless Thomas, something you'd like to talk about.
Just basically what's been touched upon already in executive and legal. We continue to work with regarding UConn voters to ensure that the counties are prepared for transmission of the ballots next, Saturday is the 22nd, on or before then. We continue to work as far as collecting the data that's required of us by Judge Sharp's order and the federal government as part of some of our grant process. I know Dave's going to touch upon some of the updates that we've been making to the various systems in play to better serve those voters. And I think lastly, I'll just point out, on Monday we had hosted a group of women from the country of Bahrain who are currently in the country visiting a couple different places just to explore and examine the U.S. electoral cycle and just to see how everything kind of works. So They were here for about an hour. John and I spoke with them about a number of their questions. We gave them an opportunity. Bob Warren was nice enough to help show them, give them a demo of the voting machines, so they were able to cast the ballots on both the optical scan machines and the BMDs. And I think they left here very appreciative of the visit.
Thank you, Tom. Campaign finance, Liz Hogan, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just a couple of things I would like to highlight to you to supplement the written report. One is that, of course, we are in the middle of a flurry of filing times. The primary generates the responsibility to file 3 primary reports. The general generates the responsibility to file 3 general election reports, so all in a very short period of time. 2 reports have already been the dates have already passed, but the 4 more are upcoming very quickly. So I just bring that to everyone's attention, anyone who might be listening, county commissioners or county boards to, assist filers and urge filings, that need to be made, because it's a very concentrated time. The other thing I just wanted to highlight is, we've been very busy. Our database has 2 sides to it, basically, the financial side, the candidate side. And the financial side at this time of year is dependent on the things that happen on the candidate side. When petitions are filed and candidates are finalized and uploaded, and the same when for the general election. The FIDA side has to do a lot of things that, basically require manual work in order to align the financial side in a way that effectuates the mandates of the statute, and that is the filing dates. We have to set our system so that the system knows that certain people owe us reports. It has to recognize that. A lot of this kind of thing that we do is very manual. And, IT, the folks in IT are terrific support for us on this, and we're also, our own unit, a very concentrated effort to get this thing done, because it has to be done in a very short time period as well. So we've been very, very busy doing that kind of thing, and, other than that, what we're doing in our unit is the routine but relevant things that we do all the time to effectuate, what we have to accomplish. Bill, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just of one significant note, we've had some general conversations with Bob and Todd, but IT and campaign finance are working together to try to find a way, specifically as it relates to our certified mailing requirements, to find something that's more efficient use of our staffing. Right now, we have a kind of an antiquated process where we do, under a statutory mandate, certified mailings to candidates and committees who owe us filings. It's a rather labor-intensive process to manually do these envelopes, etc. It's a one step removed from when you have to put the green label on yourself, but it's not that far removed. And when you do it in essence, in the thousands potentially, it's rather huge. So we've been looking to explore some procurement options to reduce the cost of certified mailings overall, with a more automated process, which would save us over $1.20 per unit. And at the same time, because of staffing constraints, because when we send out these letters, it's the same time the folks are calling in for assistance, so we have to balance those together. So we're hoping to come up, IT and ourselves will be meeting on Friday to put together some final numbers to present to Bob and Todd. We're hoping that we believe that we'll make a very good case as to why that's something both for staffing and fiscally would make sense to implement based upon the ever-increasing volume of certifieds that we have to do in a calendar year. We're one of the largest, if not the largest agency in the state for certified mailing purposes. And then and subsequently, as is always our big issue, is our budget fight to get approvals to have that implemented. But we're hoping to have that put forward, and we hope to get some progress on that. But it'll have a huge impact on staffing and resources.
Any questions? Thank you. IT, Dave Loomis.
Thank you, Commissioner. The only thing I want to add to my report is just an update on the nice voter changes that we've made to support the MOVE Act data interchange project. September 4th, we implemented the changes on our side to allow the voter information to be exchanged between the counties and to the counties and us, and then between us and CITL. So after that date of implementation, we have been working with CITL and the county vendors to complete the integration and the rollout into production. We anticipate that everybody from a software and systems perspective will be ready to go by the end of next week. We already have 9 counties that are fully in production and have loaded up absentee ballots, or the absentee applications for the voters. And we'll be sending out an email to the counties, hopefully either today or tomorrow, to again update them on where we are with the project and what we have, what we see as their role and the different changes that they'll see as the system is rolled out. So that's the only update I have at this point.
And how are we doing in terms of the New York City upgrades for linking to the Nysboe system? We're still on schedule to have that completed by the end of the year?
Yes, we have, the programming changes are completed from the Nysboe side of here, and we're working with NTIER to test start testing the system. As soon as we get the move changes into production completely, then we'll turn full attention to make sure that those changes also are in place.
And how have you found your new job? Are you comfortable? Or?
Yeah, very interesting. I'm enjoying it.
Wait.
I was going to say, that's a great answer. Very interesting.
I mean, just one thing on IT, I just wanted to mention that, was last Wednesday, one of the staff members, Dennis Gerard, was awarded New York Best of New York Best of New York IT Award at the general the Government Technology Conference. So we all went. Nice. There was a small reception that was held at local tavern nearby, and where other people received the award too, but he was there. That's very nice. So I think it's nice to recognize. It's nice to be recognized in that field because there's a lot of people in that and a rise in that crop in the state. I think it's very good. So
was there a particular project that?
It was for support on the Nysboe project and the different server technologies that he supports. So.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, we have under old business the independent expenditure regulations. Anyone? Any comments before we proceed?
As we left it at the last meeting, when this issue was tabled, was the original draft regulation, which had been submitted for public comment, was before the board, as well as some language that Commissioner Kellner offered for consideration by the commissioners. That's where we are today.
So I think we've had this pending for long enough now that I call for a vote on both the amendment and the regulation. So I guess the first step is the amendment that I've proposed. The amendment I've proposed, as we've discussed before, would add language that tracks the Federal Election Commission rule on independent expenditures to include within the definition communications that are functional equivalents of the words that expressly call for the election or defeat of a candidate. So I'd ask that somebody second my motion, and then we have a vote on it.
Motion made and seconded on the question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Nay, nay.
So that being the case, I guess we're ready for a vote on the regulation as a whole.
Excuse me, motion failed.
Sorry, thank you. I'm sorry, Jim.
I thought you said yes, Jim.
No, it's all for the A's. Yeah, right.
Feel bad.
I thought the same thing, I better clarify that.
The minutes will have the names of the commissioners.
I wrote down 2 yes.
Right. So, notwithstanding the defeat of my amendment, I think that the draft of the regulations as originally published is still a positive step forward.
Not as
And,
good, but yes.
well, I think it's not as clear because
Yes, I would say that.
it's my view that the law still covers functional equivalence of the express language, even though the regulation doesn't expressly say that, but because we don't say that, it may be an issue for litigation in the future. So I will vote in favor of the regulations.
We have it's a motion.
Well,
I second it.
Second. On the question, all in favor, say aye.
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 Well, as giving my aye vote, I do want to mention that we didn't pass over that initial amendment quickly. We have had, as Commissioner Kellner, a great deal of discussion on this. It's been had a lot of analysis, a lot of conversation back and forth, so this has been sufficiently discussed. I do vote yes, and the motion passes 4-0 on this motion that Commissioner Kellner just made. Item B, discuss the election night poll site procedures and ballot redesign.
We had hoped to be a little further along in our discussion internally on that subject, but the last month has been exceptionally busy, you know, preparing for the primary, preparing for the certification, independent petitioning, and so Todd and I and others in the building have had high-level talks, but we have not yet had a chance to sit down and go through some of the detail work, so we hope to bring that to you at the next meeting, or at a future meeting, depending on when the next meeting is.
Okay, thank you. We have, under new business, determinations regarding independent nominations, objections to federal, state, local petitions, and certificates. Kim Galvin, Paul Collins.
Thanks, Commissioner. Basically, I believe that all of you have before you a packet of reports containing 3 specific pages. 1, the prima facie report. 2, the summary of determinations based upon objections. And 3, a list of people that failed to file acceptances for the positions to which they were on the petition. Basically what this is operations and I have reviewed all of the paperwork that has come in. And these are generally speak for themselves. I think if you have any questions specifically on them,
I move the adoption of the report as prepared by the staff.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Motion carried.
thank you.
Item B, vote on resolution to adopt amendments to 9 NYCRR Part 6204 and 6209. Kim Galvin, Paul Collins.
These are amendments to our regulations having to deal with compliance with Section 73 of the Public Officers Law, which precludes us from asking about political contributions. The regulation required that vendors submitting voting machines for certification had to disclose what political contributions they made in direct contravention of 73 of the Public Officers Law. The other amendment is earth-shattering. It has to do with eliminating that portion of our regulation that requires us to select the colors of the coloring of the cover sheets to be filed with the New York City Board of Elections. These have been published in the State Register. The 45-day comment period has come and gone. We have received, shockingly, absolutely no comments. So at this point in time...
Did you get mine? I have fuchsia.
At this point in time, the board may vote to amend our regulations. We'll publish the notice of adoption in the State Register, and the next law book will show correct regulations.
And I just want to add that I believe that we actually adopted this in the middle of 2009, and that it just fell through the cracks, that the paperwork never made it into the law books.
No, I kind of agree. I wouldn't have been able to pull that out of a hat, but that sounds right to me, that we did adopt this before. I don't know if it was 2009, but if you say so, I believe it.
It was an excellent presentation on a very complicated matter. We appreciate you doing that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried.
Was that unanimous?
That's unanimous. Item C, resolution to certify upgrades to ES and SDS 200 voting systems and AutoMark and Dominion Image Cast voting systems and ballot marking devices. Kim and Joe Burns.
I think everybody's familiar with this issue. It started last month. These are the resolutions to certify the upgrades for both systems. I think Kim had something.
Commissioner Kellner, I think that you may have a couple specific certification issues. If that's correct, I can wait for my comments on the litigation or.
Well, whichever you want to do first, Kim. My biggest concern is that these are voluminous reports. I don't think the reports have been publicly posted yet on the internet. Am I correct, Tom and John? The testing reports for this round of certification?
I don't believe these are up on the internet.
Right,
These are not up on the internet.
And I only got them Thursday night at the same time we were served with the task of getting the papers together in the Hispanic Leadership Fund lawsuit, so that I've had very little time to do the due diligence in terms of reviewing the certification test reports. That being said, on a policy point, we've had a lot of discussions in the last couple of weeks on whether or not it would be feasible for some or all of the counties to implement these changes this year. And certainly we have the Commissioners' the resolution of the Commissioners Association calling upon us not to implement the new software upgrades until after the November general election. There were some counties, however, with respect to the ES&S upgrade that indicated that maybe they'd be able to do it. And I had suggested that if, in fact, all of the certification paperwork is in order and we've certified the system, then the statute would allow those ES&S counties that thought that they'd be able to implement that to go forward. And I understand that some people have raised concerns over the idea that that there would be multiple versions of ES&S software then that would be available for the general election. But since that time, it's my understanding that New York City and Nassau County and the other ES&S counties have all indicated that none of them would be able to proceed even if we certified today. Is that everybody's understanding?
That's what we've been told.
Well, I was aware of some. I didn't know if it was all, but I was aware that New York City, Nassau County, and Rockland County specifically said they
Talking
would.
about big numbers.
And I think Erie also indicated,
Commissioner Ward was here last time, and
well, he
he was
initially,
polite, but
my understanding of Erie's position was initially they thought that maybe they'd be able to do it, but they weren't sure. And they've now told us that they advise against it.
At the period of time of, the election commissioners conference, the first couple of days, August 1st and 2nd, they adopted the resolution at that time. It's unanimous that it would be a burden at that time when we anticipated getting this work done on August 7th. It creates, so some of the counties who thought if we could meet that August 7th, thought maybe we could get that work done. I mean, New York City in a conversation thought maybe they could get it done if we had completed that work on August 7th. But by, not finishing the certification testing in that period of time, any of that prep work that they could have done in the, pre-primary, for those machines that aren't in the primary, for those periods of time where they had staff time that could do some of the work parallel, the primary work and that. We've heard from others that have said, we lost that opportunity, so now if we had to do it all now after the primary, we just don't have enough time to do it in a, what I think the last time we rolled it out was 9 weeks. It's really, really compressed period of time to get it done, finish the primary, get it done, and get all the work that you needed done for the general.
And if I just may comment on Bob's point, I believe what he's saying is critical with regard to the timing, that when August was set initially internally by the staff as the certification date time, we were anticipating that many counties would have multiple machines that wouldn't be being utilized in the primary in their county, and they would be able to upgrade each of those machines in anticipation that when the primary is in fact certified, they could complete their work, which is substantial, requires an upgrade to their operating systems, and also requires, an upgrade to their EMS, their election management system. And the problem is, what you have is now with this upgrade, it's requiring the changes to the operating system and the EMS, which disallows a county from parallel tracking these types of items and continuing on with their work on the new software while they still have the old software functioning. So they would actually have to be required to close out their primary election. So assuming everything goes perfectly well, it perhaps is 2 weeks, and then do all of that work in the even more compressed time frame. Particularly in light of the fact that the general election ballots are for the federal offices are due to go out on September 22nd. There is a lot of concern about. So when we originally had the August date, we were still envisioning like a bifurcated process on the part of the counties. Now that it's September, I think internally many of us agree that with the counties that the time frame it has been shortened considerably. And they did say in their resolution back then that I think they used the word catastrophic, which always gives you pause when the people on the ground doing the work are telling you in a presidential and a full legislative election that there's a potential for catastrophic events to occur.
I think common sense has to be a golden rule on this one.
Well, it just not to speak openly about many of the cases, but in the double vote and the overvote litigation, as I talked about earlier, you have two sets of plaintiffs, and one set is questioning the good intentions and the good faith of the board, and as the evidence and the work, and I think all of our discussions and all of our prior meetings have shown that the intention has always been there to be compliant with the federal court orders. On balance, however, when you have the people on the ground doing this, the late reports and the inability to really delve into them as directly, and the importance, not that every election is important, but certainly the magnitude of the upcoming election, on balance, it becomes a touchy issue.
I think our discussion is hopefully indicating to all who are watching this and hearing this that we do have good faith and good intentions here. And this is an election, not that any other one is less important, but this one is extremely important with the presidential, all the state legislature up, and additional offices. That this is not a time to take a chance on anything because you don't have a chance to recover if there's a fumble on this. So I think we're heading in the direction that we should be for the good of the voter and the process.
I think Jim is right.
If there is a consensus that none of the counties would use this system for the November general election, then I would ask that we lay this over till the next meeting. Because even though the Citizens Election Machine Advisory Committee, have I got the name right? CMAC, has expired, I think the principle is still a good one, that the testing reports ought to be vetted publicly. So that I would request that we put this over for a month, and I would request that election operations and public information coordinate getting the appropriate test reports up on our website so that interested members of the public can review the certification testing procedures. And I would point out that every certification is really important, so that there was a lot of attention paid in December of 2009 when we did that certification. And of course, at that time, we had this Citizens Election Machine Advisory Committee in place. Now, well, I guess there's an assumption that that we know what we're doing in the certification process, and therefore it's not subject to as much scrutiny as it was. But I think it's still important that we take time to look at these test reports and make sure it's all there. And I have one question for Bob, if I might. I'm sorry if I'm going on too long, but Bob, one of our requirements is that there be independent review of the source code. And that function used to be done by Nysboe. And I understand that Nysboe is not the entity that did the independent review of this upgrade. Is that correct? Or can you explain just how this is working now?
The way it worked now is both vendors had submitted all their source code to Wiley Labs, which is a certified lab by the EAC. Wiley Labs did a thorough review of the source code for the federal side to make sure that the source code adhered to the VVSG. Once they completed their review, that source code and the reports from Wiley went to our lab, SLI, and SLI reviewed the source to see that it met the New York State requirements, along with analyzing and doing a sample of what Wiley had done to verify that Wiley had done a thorough review.
Now how is it that SLI came to be the independent authority?
Well, SLI was the independent authority because they were reviewing the work that Wiley had done. They did a review of the reports, and then they did a review of a sample. They took a sampling of the code, and they would go back and look to see that they did do a due diligence on the report.
Now, the report that I received from SLI is a very short report. Is there a more detailed report?
There's the more detailed report with the Wiley reports that you can receive.
I would appreciate going through that because, as I say, I think that this source code review and the testing process is very important, and that, at least from my point of view, I'd like to give it as much attention as we did in December 2009. And certainly getting these so shortly before the meeting, at the same time we're required to work on the federal lawsuit and the Hispanic Leadership Fund suit, became impossible to get that done.
Now, we did also go through a Nysboe review. Nysboe was involved at the end with this process too. So,
and in the December 2009 certification, we left open several issues of technical noncompliance with the voluntary voting system guidelines that were going to be resolved or waived. And where do we stand with this certification on addressing those issues that were in the testing discrepancy reports that led us to that conditional certification?
SLI took the items that were left open from the prior certification and combine those with the items that they found through this certification. So there's a spreadsheet detailing all the items from '09 to the present, and all the items are closed out.
Now, I don't know that I've gotten the detailed spreadsheet. I got a summary, but
okay.
And the detailed spreadsheet needs to be reviewed, whether it contains items that have to be redacted in order to meet our regulations in terms of redacting certain types of security issues. But to the extent that we can, I would like to make as we did in December 2009, make publicly available the testing reports, so that those who are interested would be able to review them and vet them.
Okay. We can post, we'll put them on the web under the voting machine section.
Can I just make one more comment on the certification process? If for nothing else, for the clarity of the record, for perhaps those people that might be watching. For purposes of our lawsuits that required, our consent decrees that required these screenshots to be used for the 2012 election, I mean, many have asked us, why didn't you just do the screens? Why are these other changes? And I think you heard Sue Cohen at the last meeting, I think we touched on at the last meeting that, software is fluid. It's constantly being worked on, it's constantly being upgraded. Our current software is operating on a system that is at its end of life. So the decisions were made.
Kim, 3 of those things are not really accurate. Software is not fluid. In the voting system environment, the software is fixed.
But the development of software is fluid.
Yes, in a general sense, but your remarks could be misinterpreted, because in the voting machine context, it's just the opposite, because we freeze the software. We say, this is what's certified and what's been fully tested, and you can't change it without going through this very complex process of testing and analysis to make sure that there are no bugs, and that there are no viruses or malicious potential introduced into the code. So unlike most users of software, we freeze the actual system that's being used, and we require basically a repeat of this entire process, and I think that's what you were getting at.
Well, that's not what I wasn't intending.
But what you were getting at was the support system that's separate from the machine software.
Right, and the vendor development of a variety of county concerns and disability community concerns. They're constantly working outside of our frozen.
Well,
Yeah.
All of these developments, which in a different environment, outside the election environment, you would do all these little minor upgrades. But in the election environment, you can't do the minor upgrades because of the risks to the election process that are introduced by the nature of having to keep a secret ballot.
Without the full certification.
Without the full certification. And I know that's what you were getting
That
to,
is what
but I was just carefully listening to what you were saying.
That is, nothing we do is fluid. Everything is fixed and tied down. But
I understand
when
what you
we
mean.
realized that we were running a little askew of the timeline, we did go back, I think this is the important, to the vendors and ask if they could do just the screens into the current system. And we were told that the time frames would be even greater than it was to continue on with the current process. It would not have expedited it.
And wouldn't be ready for the November election, right?
Right.
That's what I thought.
Because of the fact that we would have to go through the entire full testing regimen again. Fluid.
Our job really is to protect the sanctity of every single vote during any election. And it would be irresponsible for us at this juncture to thrust upon the local boards of elections to change the system or try to introduce a system which may or may not threaten that sanctity. And as far as I'm concerned, we're on the right track. Certification process, as has been laid out very clearly here today, is complex. It's not something that's done 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, 6 for that matter. It has to be done, redone, readjusted, relooked at, and then certified. And then at that point tested. And after tested, then goes to the boards to implement. This is a presidential year. We have enough problems facing all of those things. We have enough things on our plate with 3 primaries. In a year, this is a very unusual year. And I say there's absolutely no way that this almost shouldn't even be contemplated. The reason we're discussing it is obviously because there have been lawsuits brought to push us in that direction. But I think it should be clear, as far as this board is concerned, that the timing is ill-timed. And as far as I'm concerned, I would move that we table this.
Do I have a second? I'll second.
Great.
On the question to table, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And we are gonna post the test reports to the extent that they don't disclose information that our regulations make confidential. We're gonna put them up on the internet.
Okay,
Thank
motion's
you.
been moved, tabled, and passed. Before we move on, the next meeting date is established for October the 16th.
When is it?
October 16th.
October 16th, okay.
And I think we're also looking for the one after that.
If you want to announce it.
December 10th.
December 10th.
Okay.
November, obviously, we're tied up with the elections
October
and
16th and
Thanksgiving
November
and
10th.
color paper. Paul, you gotta handle that paper, aren't you?
So, I would move the adoption of the staff report on the campaign finance issues as prepared. But I do ask that we have a very short executive session on one other issue for campaign finance enforcement.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Anna's not here, but we did receive 2 ECOs from both vendors that you wanted brought up.
Oh.
Were de minimis in changes, and I know she said that they just have to be mentioned to the board. One was for changing the memory sticks in the cars for ES&S, along with a board that was end of life in the Automark, and the other was for component changes to the scanner on Dominion, which we received one of those scanners and we used through our testing.
I think we should approve those equipment change order proposals
I heard about the
as
sticks
de
that they
minimis.
needed, yeah.
That's a motion. And seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
All right, so I have the motion to
Yes.
approve the campaign finance report of the staff.
Second?
Aye.
All
Oh,
in
I'm
favor,
sorry,
aye?
wait a minute, wait a minute.
Opposed?
Oh, you made
Carried?
that already.
Carried.
All right.
There is
then
a move to go to
motion to
executive.
go to executive session to discuss enforcement issue.
Have a second on that?
Aye.
All right. Favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Josh?
We don't anticipate any votes while we.
Oh, wait, no, it
won't be any votes.
No votes.
For people to
We'll move to adjourn?
stay.
Yes. There will be no voting on any issue coming out of executive session, so anyone who cares to leave may do so.